G'day. Hey, 43. How you going, mate? G'day, Bluey. G'day, Jexa. G'day, Johnny. How's everyone going?
What's going on?
Going well. Heaps, mate. Everything's pumping, so it's pumped over. Pump November. How's it? Was it Uptober? Now we got pump.
I think they're calling it move Nember or something, are they? Moving up or
I think we probably should have rehearsed that. That's funny. Yeah, but either way, we're getting big green dillies on the charts. That's all we care about. And yeah, welcome to Johnny today. He's going to give us a bit of a rundown on the secret weapon. So that should be cool. How you going, Johnny?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm hoping the community can get on board and get excited with me because, you know, I've got some good news for everybody. You know, we have something really cool, a cool new tool that the community has, but it's actually not new. It's been around for a little while. So we're just going to go ahead and get the message out as to the power behind this thing. So that's what I'm excited about.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it, especially with the time zones, you know, sort of opposite ends of the globe. And we've got Hex Enthusiast there. How you going, mate?
Yo, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Your audio is super quiet.
Oh, no. What about now? How's that? Any better?
Slightly better, but still pretty muted.
I'm trying to get it out.
Oh, there you go. Now we're talking.
That's better. Sweet. Brilliant.
Cool.
No, I'm going good. I'm actually pretty exhausted from the heat down in my area today.
Oh, wow.
Hit us pretty hard. Got to like 41 or something, 42. So
no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of sort of nowhere it
over
felt.
100.
Yeah, degrees Celsius we're talking. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll have Google for that.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
It'd be like 105 or something.
Oh, wow.
It's
buggered. So I'm on the iced coffees. My wife made me a beautiful iced coffee to perk it up a bit. So
nice.
All good.
Yeah, I've got the I've got a Peroni here, so I've taken after 43. Shout out Peroni gang.
That's how you do it.
I'll crack that and yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm pretty excited about all these giant green dillies that's been going on. So I think it's the BlackRock Ethereum spot ETF they just announced on they're just starting to get the tickers and all that stuff. I heard something about it. So does anyone know any more about that?
I don't know any details. Obviously they've made the announcement, and I often wonder, like, I mean, we look back at the charts months ago, 6 months ago, and we're sort of saying, well, we're on trend to hit these price targets. So I'm not sure whether the news is the direct result. I think it did push Ethereum a bit further ahead against Bitcoin today off the back of it, but I think it's already had a bit of wind behind its back just from the general.
Hang on, it's still all kind of rumors and stuff,
Yeah. I don't think anything's been.
How long? We've had that for years.
And that's right, and that's what I mean. Like you get these little news snippets come out, and I think they're sort of pushed out as a bit of narrative for what's taking place on the charts anyway.
And it's a bit hard to take what Cointelegraph say, you know, seriously, because they shut the bed the last time with their call.
That's right.
But you know, this is the Ethereum sort of dilly we're talking about, and yeah, I'm pretty sure. Where did I see it? Oh, I think it was Cointelegraph. So, I'm not sure if we should be taking this. Oh no, so this is about that hack. So CoinSpot apparently got that hack. So, but you know, as Hexicans, we don't really keep our coins on exchanges. We know to self-custody our keys and all that sort of stuff, so it's probably not affecting us. But that's a good reminder for people to, like, you know, not have your money on exchanges. Here it is. So BlackRock registers iShares Ethereum Trust signaling potential interest in Ethereum. Oh, so it's still potential interest. Damn. Yeah, okay. But they've got the Ethereum Trust. Okay. All right, maybe I should have read that a bit more closely, but I think that's why the the later. But BTC was pumping before that, right? Like, just because of this good.
Your audio is just going a bit bunky, mate. Not sure what's happened there.
Might be some moving things around.
You sound like you're talking. Yeah, it's just a little bit
muffled. Yeah.
That's
better.
That's good.
You got
it. That's good.
I'll just get a bit closer, maybe, to the mic. Sorry about that. I was just saying, yeah, I agree with what you were saying, Jex. I like the BTC chart has just been making higher highs, and it's just been looking really good, like structurally. And if we're going to be hitting some big targets to sort of hit, the previous all-time high, 67K by sort of mid next year, then it's going to have to start cranking up anyway.
Yeah.
So it could just be that. But yeah, the charts have been looking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I wanted to just quickly ask Johnny, seeing as though we've got him here to talk about the secret weapon thing. So I have listened to your videos. You did a stream with Cabana and Coffee, I think it was, and you went on with Matty Allen, and so you've done a few in-depth ones. And you have to maybe excuse us a little bit today, because half the Aussies are just getting off work and having a few beers and a few sheets to win. So if you can give us a general overview of Comm and how you think that this is going to be an asset to the Hex community. And I guess the thing that we're talking about here is adoption and getting more and more people on. So if you could go into that just as an overview to start with, that would be great.
Absolutely. Definitely. So I'm going to go easy on everybody today. A lot of what I've been talking about lately has been very technical. Let's talk through it. So we have a new tool in our community. We can use this tool to do automatic marketing for Hex. So there was a coin that launched back in January. That coin was called Comm. The ticker is Comm. The full name is Communis. Communis is a Latin word for community, and I think that's great because this really nails it for the coin of the community, in my opinion. So it's going to be a lot of fun for the community to discover what's going on here and the power that we have. And when this thing launched back in January, it was given out to the Hex users according to the amount of T-shares that they had. So it was a free airdrop given out to Hex stakers. And I figure most people should be aware of the coin already by now, since it was airdropped for free and claimable. When I look at the amount that has been claimed of this coin versus the total amount that is claimable for the amount of stakers that exist to date, it's about 20% of the token that has been claimed. But this token was created by Hex community member who's a developer and has developed some tools in the past that has been used in the community. And he goes by the name of Kodiak. And so he developed this token, and you can go to the website at communis.app. And what you'll see is he describes it as tokenized shares. Now, that sounds like just a word, like a marketing kind of word, or, just like a fun word to use. But the implications behind it are very powerful. So when this coin launched, it was claimable, and many of the Hex holders didn't see the value in it because they just looked at it as just another sort of a meme coin, actually. And
sure.
They looked at it as something, for the most part, or in large quantities, as something to just claim and then dump.
Do you think my feel on that was it was probably the time in which it actually launched, so the point in time which was deep in a bear market. Everyone's probably been a little bit fatigued with all sacrifices and airdrops and things that had been going on. So it probably got overlooked a little bit from that point of view. And like you say, the value at the point in time of what you could mint was negligible, especially when you had to take into account gas costs and the like. And if I'm being brutally honest, it is a little bit overwhelming when you first go to look at it. Like the simple thing of staking and you get some coins is fine, but then when you actually try to dig into the detail, it is a little bit confusing in terms of debt bonuses, or sorry, debts you accrue and things like that, which for me personally, I went so far and then I went, okay, this is just too complicated for me to spend much time on at this point in time. Now, in hindsight, we should probably spend a little bit more time on it, but I think that was probably the general feel for a lot of people. So if you have looked at it previously, I think it's worth going back and revisiting, especially off the back of this conversation.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of people have sort of said that it seems complicated. I really thought that the way Johnny did that first video actually seemed quite simple. Like he really, so I would encourage people to go back and watch his one, because it very clearly, and even at 1.5x, you can get a pretty quickly, you can get a pretty good idea. I mean, I have a very basic understanding of it because I haven't really gone into the deep dive, but the idea about this cashback, so you can, because everyone's kind of familiar, particularly in Australia, we have that idea where you can get a loan or something and you get a cashback, or you buy an air conditioner,
like a rebate
so you get cash in hand. So that idea, I think, is actually implicitly simple for people to get, and I think that's kind of the idea of this secret weapon, is that you're encouraging people to, because the Comm, if I'm not mistaken, it's disproportionately pays out to people who do Quattro Cinco stakes, like 5-5-5-5. So the way that it's weighted, it's really encouraging the sort of the tenets of the hex utility, which is to delay gratification, to send your money out to the future, to lock it up, to give up your ability to sell it, and then you reap the rewards. So, and then by encouraging that, I think it encourages the original tenets of hex.
So I think and this is what you're really about, Johnny, is it's about educating on how this tool can actually be used and putting that in a, I think that's what the secret weapon does, is it explains how we can actually use this as a community and make it work to our advantage. So I'll get out of your way and let you keep going, man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it is definitely something that requires education in the community, because if it didn't require the education, then it would have been noticed already and it would have gotten community support. But it's been 11 months and it hasn't gotten community support.
True.
It's very clear when you look at the volume, the trading volume on it, very low, low amount of demand, and it should have plenty of demand based on what this thing is and what it can do. So yeah, the education part is going to be very important, but at the same time, it shouldn't be a giant hurdle to get through, because it really only takes a few voices of guidance, just a few people to understand it and then spread the message, and the message part of it is simple. So even though the mechanics under the hood may be a little complicated, it only takes a few people to understand that. But then the actual message is more like the difference between understanding the actual engine underneath the hood and all the components and what's going on with the engine's parts, versus actually just getting in the car and just driving it, which is what this is all going to come down to, is just the community just getting in the car and driving this thing to where it should go. So it is going to be simple in the end. And, as we... as you pointed out, Daza, the coupon is a very simple concept to understand, or the however you want to call it, whether you want to call it a rebate, cashback, coupon.
Cashback. Yep.
Yeah. And I was kind of, thinking about, which is the best term to use when looking at this. I ended up going with coupon is the choice words that I decided to call it.
Sure.
And then, so the other thing when it comes to just the community understanding what this is, was that it didn't necessarily get the marketing push that it deserved in the beginning when it launched. Kodiak, the developer who made the coin, he deserves to just be the technical guy who made the coin. This is a coin that he launched for the community. He put it out there for us. He did the hard work of doing all the technical parts of getting this thing out there. And, I think there's something about when you're doing things as a decentralized community, you probably shouldn't be expecting somebody to be, you know, wear so many hats and be the technical guy as well as the founder CEO type, as well as the marketer.
Good point.
Which is kind of what would have been the ask for this thing to do to get the attention that it deserved in the beginning. So, so yeah.
Essentially, we need like a layman's guide, like we did with Hex. We all went through a discovery process, and the community all rallied around together and fleshed out all the nuances of T shares and things. And I guess that's where we are now at this stage of Communist, is where we're getting all those pieces of the puzzle together.
Can I ask just a really simple question? What's the selling point of why anyone would want to buy this? What's the demand? Why would anyone buy this? That it's not just, you know, getting a Hex stake and getting it for free and just dumping it. Like, what's the demand side?
I like the way you said, I'll ask a simple question.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's a great question. Why would there be demand for this instead of just trying to extract the value out of it when you're a staker? The reason is because you want to support a marketing component of Hex. So Hex is a product, and when you look at all products in crypto, most of them don't have a marketing aspect to the product. The marketing has to be done by community and kind of these whatever anybody can come up with in a decentralized fashion to market their coin. But now we have something where we can do the marketing automatically simply by parking the money somewhere. And so the demand for the Hex users, they should demand this token because they demand a marketing fund or a marketing budget, whatever you'd want to call that. But this is essentially something where money can go into it, and that money that sits there can act automatically as the marketing for this. And it goes back to that simple concept of the coupon, where if the coupon is high enough, it's going to do the marketing automatically. So
that's that coupon rate that you're talking about. Like, if we get that rate up.
Yes. And so right now, you know, the rate currently sits at about 7% for the coupon as it stands right now. But that's with minimal support, with nobody in the community necessarily supporting this token yet. So you have to imagine, once it gets full support, how high can that coupon rate actually go? And the coupon rate just simply goes higher, the higher that Comm's price goes up versus Hex.
Yeah, so let's just define what the coupon rate is, because this stream, I think, will be really good if we keep it light, and then we can send people to the more technical stuff. So in terms of the coupon, what we're referring to is if someone was to say take, I don't know, $100, buy that worth of Hex, send it out on a 15-year stake, at the current moment, they would get $7 back in a rebate or a coupon. And what Johnny's saying is, if we can get that coupon rate up, it will become so attractive where we'll get to the point where someone can go buy $100 worth of Hex, send it out for 15 years and get $70 back. And there's a point there where it just becomes a no-brainer for someone to take up that option, because they're essentially getting a massive discount, a 70% discount on these shares.
And that'll be different for everyone. So some people might say a 50% cashback or is a great deal. Some people might think 20% is a great deal. I mean, obviously 100% is a great deal for everyone, but it doesn't have to go to that 100%.
It's not cashback. It's comeback.
Yeah. But assuming there's liquidity for it. So I guess that's the other part of it, is that it requires people to come back. That's right. But yeah, but if you can sell that Comm into and it's assuming the liquidity is there, then you're getting a token that has value that you can eventually extract, or you don't have to. You can just keep it in Hex or whatever. But presumably people would turn it back into Hex, is what I'm guessing.
They can turn it back into Hex. They can cash it for dollars. The point should be that they should do what they would like to do with that, cashback. But what they really want to do, or what we want to do, and the reason for supporting this, is to encourage better staking, encourage longer staking, and influence a global average stake length that rises. Now, we can do that because of the disproportionate amount of reward that gets paid to the 15-year stakers versus the stakers that do lower time lengths in their staking duration. So this is a token where the reward gets paid out to stakers only, but to even start getting a reward for this, you have to stake at least 6 months. And then the difference between a 15-year staker versus a 1-year staker, what they're going to get in Comm reward, is actually a 51x difference. So the 15-year staker will get 51 times as much Comm as the 1-year staker using the same amount of time. And so because of that disproportionate reward, if this thing gets the support that it deserves, it would actually influence the global average stake length to rise. So that's the key here. And I also want to touch on more of the question that Blue Bum asked earlier, because I think one of the main things that people would have a hard time wrapping their head around with this concept is, so you as the Hex holder, you like the idea, inherently, of having a marketing aspect to the token that you hold. However, you hit a problem with Tragedy of the Commons, and the Tragedy of the Commons is going to say, yeah, you guys go and add to that marketing fund. I'll sit back here and hold all my Hex and accrue all the value that comes from that marketing. And this is the problem that you end up running into when you simply look at it as a coupon without looking at it for how we approach that coupon and how we approach supporting it. And that's the key that I believe I've solved here in developing what I'm calling the secret weapon and the Comm Hex fusion. So yeah, the idea is you don't want to be the person supporting the marketing because you just want to hold on to your Hex. Now, the scenario I want you to imagine is this. So imagine that Hex was a token that only had 10,000 tokens, was the total supply. Okay. And then imagine that there's 100 holders of this supply, and each holder has 100 tokens. So you have 100 people holding 100 Hex each, which means there's 10,000 Hex out there. And let's say the price of that Hex is $1. And that would mean that the market cap, because there's 10,000 coins, the market cap is $10,000. Okay. But now imagine that you get those 100 holders. Imagine that you have a scenario where all 100 of those holders take 99 of their coins each and they burn them. Now each holder only has 1 token. But the price of that token shouldn't have fell, and it shouldn't have stayed the same, because the supply just had a massive reduction. And it was actually a 100x reduction in supply. And so what should the price do? The price should now do a 100x.
Depends on the liquidity. Yeah, but yeah.
If you assume that the volume stays the same. So we're assuming...
if this is in a pool,
assuming that daily demand is unchanged. If you have 100 people who had 100 Hex each, and all 100 of them decide at the same time, we're going to burn 99 of our tokens, you would now do 100x in the price if that demand stays the same. Okay. And so you have the benefit in that scenario where you just did a form of automatic marketing because the price just immediately launched 100x in price, simply because all 100 holders at the same time decided to burn 99 of their coins, and then the demand side stayed the same.
So the value hasn't changed, but because you've only got one.
The value.
It's just,
I'll just keep going.
So going back to that problem, the problem that you run into is that we can't find a scenario that defeats Tragedy of the Commons that would tell everybody to burn all their coins at once. Okay. But that is what we would be solving here with this, with this thing that I'm calling the Hex Comm fusion and the secret weapon. So the Comm itself serves as a coupon. Okay. But what we need to resolve when we're raising this coupon is we need to resolve the fact that anytime somebody purchases Comm, there's always going to be somebody on the other end dumping the token because they claimed it as a reward. So how do we resolve that? Well, you resolve it by setting terms on the allocation in such a way where the allocation is set up where you put in a certain amount of money into Comm, and then you put in a certain amount of money into Hex, and then the amount of Comm that is going to be minted to claim had to go on the Hex side and burn the Hex in order to claim that Comm. And in doing so, they had to raise the value of Hex to do that. So you can find a scenario when you get these allocations right, where the amount of money that is being given away in claims is being given away in a way where on the other side, on the Hex side, more Hex had to be burned than what was claimed on the Comm side. And so to put this simply, when you have a coupon rate of say 5%, for example, well, the difference between 5% and 100% in multiples is a 20x. So 20 times 5 is 100. So if you have a coupon rate that is 5%, then that means the person who's going to come and claim that Comm had to have burned 20 times as much Hex, but they didn't just burn 20 times as much Hex. They staked it out for 15 years because that coupon rate at 5% is the 15-year rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to recap, so we make sure we're not losing anyone. So when we refer to burning Hex in this scenario, what we're saying is someone's taking their Hex, they're locking it up in a stake for 15 years, which essentially destroys that Hex and turns it into T shares. And for those T shares, they get to mint new Comm at an amount of, at this point, 5%. So 5% of the value of whatever they've staked, they can mint as Comm. So I think what's important now is, okay, and I think where I can see Blue Bum ticking over is, okay, great, someone's got a bunch of Comm. They're just going to go dump it now. So what's the way we can what's the mechanism behind protecting that or like you say, distributing that marketing budget?
Sure. So the way we do this is we say we want to support an automatic marketing system, but we don't want to get hurt while we're supporting that system. Because at the end of the day, you still want to make returns. Okay. So you don't just want to pour the money into the marketing and then not make a return from that.
Yeah.
How do you resolve
full
that?
Disclosure, I am in it for the jet skis. So
absolutely. So am I.
Not for the tech. No.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to set this up in a way where we're not going to get hurt by supporting the marketing budget. We're going to actually benefit from it. And the way that you would benefit from it is this allocation. Now the way that I've declared this Comm Hex fusion and the secret weapon, I'm saying that you have Comm is the token and the secret weapon is the plan, okay, to approach the supporting of this marketing system. Okay. So right now we're sitting around a 5%. We're in between the 5 to 10% coupon rate. Okay. The allocation that's going to call for is going to be based on a balanced equation on both sides. So the reason that I'm calling this a Comm Hex fusion is because when you're looking at the allocations that these call for to balance the equation, meaning that the amount of money getting burned on one side has to be also added to the other side. Okay, the way that these allocations are set up is in order to balance that. Okay, so that the losses on one side even out on the other side. And the reason I'm calling it the Comm Hex fusion is because along the way towards 100% coupon rate, it always calls for some allocation of Hex and some allocation of Comm. And so the proper approach to this is that you want to change your mindset as a community and say, we're not looking at Comm and Hex as two separate coins. We're looking at it as one coin. And according to what coupon rate it is right now, we should be allocating this amount to Comm and this amount to Hex. And by doing so, you've balanced the equation so that we have the marketing to bring in new users and add to the global stake length, make that rise. But at the same time, we're getting the increase in value on the Hex side. While
when you sorry to interrupt. When you're referring to an allocation, are you talking about the liquidity pools that you're setting up, or is that something different you're talking about?
Sure. So this secret weapon, I've created liquidity pools in the PHUX platform under the ticker SWPN, which is for secret weapon. And the way that I've set up these liquidity pools is in multiples of 5% coupon rates at a time. So there's a pool for the 5% rate, there's a pool for the 10% rate, and 15, 20, all the way up to 100. Okay. And these pools can be joined, and in joining those pools, you are supporting the marketing budget for Hex with minimal risk. You're taking on the minimal possible risk because you've set it up, the pools are set up in such a way where the amount that's getting claimed on the Comm side had to have been added to the Hex side in equal amount. So you can support the marketing budget or the marketing fund, whatever you want to call that. You can support that with minimal risk. And so if I saw you bring up the pool there. I don't know which pool that was, if that was the 5%, but the 5% pool calls for a 2% allocation to Comm with a 98% allocation to Hex. And
so effectively what you're saying is we need a certain amount of people to come in and provide liquidity at these ratios. So they've got to provide
that's the 5% coupon.
98% Hex, 2% Comm. And if we get a certain volume or what's the term? A certain amount of liquidity in the pool, then that can protect that price zone, that coupon zone.
Absolutely. That's
gotcha.
correct.
So you're supporting it. Yep.
And so this is sure. Did somebody have a question there?
So the higher the coupon rate goes, I'm just trying to think through this. So someone would stake their Hex. Let's say we're at 70% coupon rate. Someone stakes Hex for the full length and then gets 70% in dollar value. So is that right? In Comm, they can go and swap that for Hex and do another stake for 5555 and get another 70% of that and do that again and just rinse and repeat until it's so little that it's not worth doing anymore.
Absolutely.
So there's, I mean, if you cared about staking Hex and getting as much staked Hex as possible and the coupon rate is high enough, then you're getting like much more than what your initial stake is. You'd be getting many, many more T-shares. We could probably work that out in terms of T-shares. You know, if you're staking 10 T-shares, well, then the next one will be 7 T-shares. And then whatever 70% of that is, the next one will be like 4 T-shares. So you might end up with like from a 10 T-share stake, you might end up with 20, 22, 23 T-shares if at the 70% coupon rate. Am I thinking about this the right way?
Absolutely. You absolutely are. And I think that thought that you're having right now is one of the major thoughts that most people you come up to when they're thinking about this. And the first thought is that, can this be abused? And the answer to that question is no, it cannot be abused. And the reason it can't be abused is, so anytime you are under a 100% coupon rate, which it always should be for most of the lifetime of the token, it can anytime it shoots above 100%, it can immediately be arbitraged down because people are getting free money at that point. And so you have to think, as long as you're below a 100% coupon rate, then that means that they had to be putting up the money to stake it. They didn't get it for free. They had to put up the hex to stake it. And so what happens if you try to start abusing that is that what you're doing is you're claiming Comm and you're selling the Comm for hex, but you're not selling the hex, you're keeping the hex. And so what you did in that event is you actually lowered the pricing ratio of Comm versus hex, because you sold the Comm, but you didn't sell the hex. And so because of that, you just lowered the Comm ratio versus hex. And in doing so, you just lowered the coupon rate. And so when you're lowering the coupon rate,
in that instance, have you also pushed up the price of hex?
Well, relative to Comm.
You're
Relative to
taking
Comm,
the hex, you're reducing the supply.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And so also there's a factor where as the T shares ratchet up, the Comm rate also goes up. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's not a forced pricing. It is influenced upward. So basically the value of it increases with the T-share rate in a 1-to-1 correlation. That's a very powerful aspect of this system. And the reason that it's powerful is because it influences the user behavior in such a way where it actually causes them to support the system more if they understand that value aspect of it. And the reason for that is this. So if you imagine going to, and by the way, please, I'm going to branch off to here on this point about that T-share rate, but remind me to come back to that that other point that we were on about the abuse of the system, the potential abuse. But the T-share, as the T-share rises, the coupon rate actually reduces at a 1-to-1 ratio with the rise of the T-share rate. And so if you get all the way up to a 99% coupon rate, let's just say 100% just to make the math easier. So let's say you get to a 100% coupon rate, and then 3 years from now, the T-share rate doubles. But let's just say Comm had no activity during that time, just to keep it simple. If there was no trades, no support, anything of the sort, the coupon rate, because the T-share rate doubled, the coupon rate would have went from 100% to 50%.
Oh.
And what does that do? What that does is it makes a system where there's always more opportunity. Because you would think once you get to a 100% coupon rate, there's no more opportunity buying Comm, because there's no more ratio difference between hex and Comm that you can take advantage of to try to turn that into gained value for yourself. However, once you do get to the 100% coupon rate, the T-share rate is taking care of that value for you because it's reducing the coupon rate as it rises. And that means that there is now more potential gains back up to the 100% coupon level.
I see. Okay.
Can I ask a question? If I'm just trying to do the maths in my head a little bit here, but if you're setting up Fux pools, which are heavily weighted, like 98% hex and only 2% Comm, aren't you encouraging people to dump all their Comm for hex?
No, if it was weighted towards, if it was heavier weighted with Comm, that's the sellers. So if it was a 98% Comm pool and a 2% hex pool, that 98% of Comm is selling.
That's selling the Comm for hex, but it's the other way around. Like you're actually, so you're encouraging people to dump their hex for Comm.
They're backing it. They're backing Comm with hex.
It's so hard to wrap your head around these weighted pools, especially when you get like more than one token in there. I'm just trying to.
If they are bonded, then theoretically they can rise together as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
the price of Comm is,
I guess
bonded
that's
to the hex price as well.
If you have a really small amount of Comm and you have a huge amount of hex, like then if people dump the Comm, they're getting lots of hex for it. So you're actually encouraging people to dump the Comm, no? And wouldn't that keep? I just don't see how it climbs the
It's the
price.
dollar value. It's percentage in dollar value. Is that my understand? Is that right? It's not percentage in like
No,
actual tokens.
These are hex to Comm pools, so it's paired with hex and Comm, and
But the percentages are the dollar value.
The coupon
right?
rate.
Yeah.
No,
Oh no, in the pools, you're saying.
In the
No.
pool, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you could put it that way. You could because okay, so when you're putting it into the pool, you have your full value, and let's just say your full value was in hex. So you have 100% of your hex right now. And then if you decide to join that 5% pool that calls for a 2% Comm allocation, what you would have needed to do to join this pool is you would have had to buy Comm with 2% of your hex. And then now your allocations are split. You have 98% hex and 2% Comm as far as the total dollar value. Okay, so now you join the pool because you just market bought 2% Comm with your hex. So you market bought Comm with your hex at an allocation of 2% of your hex. And you've now joined the pool. And what you've done by joining that pool is now when it comes to selling the Comm, you are selling the Comm, but you're only selling it at 2% of the total value. So you're not a major seller of Comm at that point. What you are doing is you are backing Comm with hex. You're backing the value of the Comm with hex.
So, Bluey, maybe this might help, and maybe this is the missing piece of the puzzle. To be able to sell into that Comm hex pool, you've got to get Comm from somewhere. So you've either got to have brought that on market previously, in which you're just a normal trader, and that's just normal market dynamics, and there's only so much Comm that exists. Or if you're wanting to sell that down into that pool, you've had to get it by staking hex. And what Johnny's saying is at a 5% rate, you have to put 20 times the value into hex. So you'd have to either have the existing hex that you've locked up or purchase that. So it's locking up 20 times the amount of hex off the market in a long stake.
Yes. We also have predictable mintability of the Comm, which means that you can predict the price floor if you have a certain amount of liquidity in the pool. And that's the key here, is because we know based on the total potential market cap of what exists in the stakes currently, how much the potential market cap of Comm could be, which would be the total amount that could possibly dump. And then if you have a certain amount of backing, then you'd have a predictable floor price from that mintability aspect. And then once
that's cool.
I just don't understand how you're escalating the price of Comm. Like, I don't see how you're making Comm more expensive. I still don't see like how just putting it in the liquidity pool, like you still need that buyer behavior.
We're still, I think the idea is that if we're getting Comm for free from staking, and so it's kind of like half the Comm that I've got is just still sitting there because I haven't touched it, because it's just, so I never sold it. I just sort of left it there. But I guess that idea of that if hexagons are willing to not sell that Comm, and then there's no sell pressure, then it's going to encourage new people who come along, like new users, to stake for 5555, and then they're getting this coupon, and then so it's encouraging like new users to come in. So I guess like it's sort of like
I see
like a marketing.
I see how it's incentivized. I just don't see how this plan to put it into these different Fux pools of different 2%, 98%, and I guess it goes up to 4%, 96%, and 8%, 92%, or something like that? Or is that how you've staggered them? And as the price of Comm goes up in value, you're telling people to move from this liquidity pool into the next liquidity pool or something?
Yes. Now, that's correct. You would have to move along with the price rise. But remember, this is your choice of what level of risk you want to take. The purpose of this secret weapon plan and these PHUX pools, the purpose of it is to send the risk to virtually zero. so that you can support this system without getting hurt. So when you join this 5% pool and it calls for 2% of your Comm, well, you can join the pool with 2% Comm and 98% Hex, but you can also just buy Comm with 2% of your Hex and then forget about joining a pool. And you've still supported the system because you just raised the value of Comm by buying it with 2% of your Hex. So your risk became 2%.
Can I ask you a quick question? As an American, you're pronouncing COM. Can you tell me the difference between COM and CUM in how you pronounce it?
I could, but I don't know if we'll get kicked off the channel if I do that.
Because is it my ears, or does he, when he says COM, it sounds like CUM?
Maybe
I think
you guys make it sound less scandalous.
That's right.
If I say it, it's not going to sound nearly as good as you guys.
Okay.
So one thing I do like about this, Johnny, is that I like the idea that it can complement Hex. So in much the way that Hedron complements Hex, because you're encouraging people to stake and they can accrue Hedron. It's kind of like if the idea with this whole Metcalfe's law thing is that if you can, it moves with the square of the growth. So if you have like 10x more network participants, then you can get say 100x in price. So if we're encouraging more people to buy Hex and to stake Hex, to burn it, send it out into the future, stake it for 15 years, then if there's new people coming in, then that could have a positive price impact on Hex itself. So yeah, just the sort of when you're onboarding someone to be able to say, oh yeah, you can buy Hex. It's a Richard Hart coin. It's going to potentially do really well this bull market. But also in staking it, you can accrue Comm, you can accrue Hedron. And so maybe a question for Bluey. Do you know if when Alex is migrating these HSIs to HMIs, do you know if he's planning on changing it so that the HMIs can also accrue Comm and potentially other things in the future?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's bullish, I reckon. Yeah. Because there could be other things as well that other builders could use to incentivize stakers as well.
Well, essentially what you end up with. Sorry, you go.
Well, what do you like? It's interesting. It's like you get all these free coins once you get this free coin, and it's like, it's interesting. Like the other way to look at it, the other tactic is to like create things which burn Hex. That's never really been popular in the Hex ecosystem, has it?
But that's essentially what you're doing, is you're burning it by virtue of staking it.
Yeah, but staking's, I mean, yes, technically you're burning it, but then you're getting tons of inflation from that eventually coming out.
I have one problem with burn, is that I like the way that you have the buy and burn with PulseX, because if you take, like with Johnny's example earlier, and you say everyone has allocated a certain amount of coins, and then they burn 99% of the coins, that actually doesn't affect the price unless those coins are in the liquidity pool, because it's not just about the total supply, it's about the buys and sells from the AMM in that liquidity pool. So when people are buying and selling, that's the only thing that's going to affect the price. Sure, you can reduce the total supply, but you still need the buys in order to push the price up. So yeah, I think a burn without a buy is not enough, because we've seen that, right, where when people stake like God Whale and stuff like that, we'll do like a whatever it is 10 million Hex stake for 15 years and the price doesn't budge.
But what it does do is it doesn't increase buy pressure, but it stops sell pressure. It
stops selling. Yeah, and that's the utility, isn't it, of the staking mechanism, is that you're giving up your option to sell and hence you're rewarded for it.
I'm with you on this one, Dozer. I think buy and burn you get the price pump, and then essentially it's like staking it forever and it never comes out. So you get the benefit on both sides. But did we go back and like talk about the abuse, the potential for abuse? Did we tie up that thread?
We didn't. Let's talk about that. But real quick, just to touch on what you were talking about with the buy and burn being better than the burn. I 100% am with you on that. This is a buy and burn once you hit a certain threshold. So yeah, it could just be a simple burn until we get to a certain point. And then once you hit a certain threshold, and we won't get into that threshold, but I do have these scenarios. And yeah, once you get to a certain threshold, it becomes a buy and burn forced. And by the way, this opens major doors for huge money to take advantage of this. Big players could take a lot of advantage right now. Without getting so much into it right now, the number that I have as that threshold right now is $300 million. So $300 million will force a buy and burn for the next 15 years if the price of HEX is staying the same as it is today, which means basically you're going to force the chart upward.
Okay. I know we want to get back to the abuse thing, but you've just brought something up that I haven't heard you discuss before. Can we spend 5 minutes just on that threshold you're talking about? Like, where does the threshold come about from? Is it so much in a liquidity pool? Is it?
Definitely. Yes. So, and yeah, I do want us to get back to the abuse. But yes, so this threshold that I'm speaking of, so the way that I've set this up and
feel free to pull up a spreadsheet or something if you've got it.
Yeah, and I don't want us to get too complicated with the spreadsheet here, but That's could share that. So let's do that. Okay. So.
Did you have any questions, Hex enthusiasts, as well?
You're muted.
You're muted, mate.
I was just going to ask like a straight up noob question for the newbies out there, which is, everyone says that the number one best form of advertising for crypto especially is the green dillies.
Yeah.
So in doing this and people supporting Comm in the way of either LPing or buying or whatever, is that going to really show, is that going to extend into green dillies for HEX? Because that, at the end of the day, that's the product we want to promote and we want to back, rather than complicating it with Comm and stuff like that.
But you've got to
buy pressure away.
Yeah, you've got to. No, that's not true. You've got to buy the HEX to be able to get the rebate or the coupon.
Yeah, but the advertising to make you want to buy HEX, or just say people are onboarding, is it going to be showing that in the way in the HEX price that it's enticing to buy, or are you going to be trying to convince them, it doesn't look great, but you get a cash back? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's one of those things. If we just put all of this effort into HEX, and that sort of thing, like kept going with it, would it not have a similar effect to the price?
That's actually a really great point, and that is one of the major points. So I'd say that wasn't a noob question at all. I think that's a great question.
Okay.
So the key here, what's really interesting is that, so I think what you're saying is, wouldn't it just be better if everybody put their purchasing power into HEX and make the green candles on HEX?
In some way, yeah.
However, with this, if you can just imagine that we were at a 99% coupon rate immediately right now, and that it had the full backing required for everyone to actually be able to claim that rate, you would get massive amount of HEX burnt out for 15 years if that were the case, because nobody's not going to accept that. They take a 1% loss to be able to get a nearly free 15-year stake because the coupon rate was 99%. And so you have a coupon rate at 99%. Me, who I have all this liquid HEX, or anyone who has so much liquid HEX, they look at this coupon, they see that it has the liquidity to get them out on the Comm side, and they say, well, okay, I can just get a nearly free 15-year stake. Well, yeah, let's do it. And then they burn their supply for 15 years. And then what they get back is nearly the equivalent, off by 1, since it was a 99% coupon rate. But they're still happy with that -1 because they just got a nearly free 15-year stake while keeping their value. And now you just burned a bunch of supply while keeping the person who did the burning, while keeping them happy.
Yeah.
So that's really
that's green candles in that sense.
So that's really the essence of tokenized shares. Is you've cashed in your hex, you've locked up a T share, and effectively you're being issued Comm, which is 25% of your tokenized shares.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
You know, do you think it's even worth, like, because Hedron is exactly the same in a lot of sense. Like, you could look at it in the same way as a cash back as soon as the days go by. You can take that Hedron.
I agree.
I think that. Sorry, you go, Billy.
So, like, could there be a combined Comm and Hedron price, which is how much you'll get for a hex stake, and then and to supplement that, you have those Fux pools with like 2% Comm, 2% Hedron, 96% hex.
Yeah, I think someone should do a dashboard like that and actually go, if you take into account the Hedron, you take into account your Comm, and then you take it at 15.
You'll get up to that a really big discount pretty quickly.
Faster.
Or more quickly than if you just use one of them, obviously.
Yep. And you could even add a third one in, you know, like we don't have to restrict ourselves here.
On the way to this, like, coupon rate getting up higher, what are like you were talking about the risks, Bluey, you're about to we're getting into that, but what would happen if a Wolverine came in and decided to, you know, do a big dump? Is that going to then, how much is that going to set us back from getting towards this coupon rate? If they did it at, say, 60 or 70%, is there that sort of power to dump it that hard? That's going to then take so long to build back up again, like we've seen with Hedron.
Yes,
but the same thing could happen with Comm as well. Like,
well, so that's
what I'm asking.
This is what's really important to distinguish. So this secret weapon plan, it is not about pumping Comm to the moon. It gets to that point, but the plan is not about that. The plan is about backing this with enough liquidity. That is the goal. Now,
it can still be dumped, can't it? Like, I'm just saying, when it gets up to that coupon rate, if someone has enough T-shares or something where they stake a huge amount or lots of wallets with whatever amount and then just decide to drain it all, would that not cause the same effect?
Are you talking about a Comm dumper? I can't even say it.
So you're speaking on the inflation of Comm causing an effect of that sort. The thing about the inflation with Comm, which is different from Hex, is that there is no inflation schedule. The inflation can come out all at once or not at all, or it can come out in waves. You can have huge waves of inflation in a week, or you can have no inflation. And actually, this is a visible chart that you can see on the communist.app website, where you'll see how much Comm has been minted over the days. And actually, ever since I started speaking on this secret weapon, we've seen a huge spike in the amount of claims, which is actually inflation. It's actually inflated, I've seen, by 10 quadrillion tokens over the last week or so.
I had a few problems, like, actually minting it or like claiming it, and after a little while, I just kind of gave up on it, especially on the ETH chain. So people are minting on the PulseChain or on both?
What I'm looking at mainly is PulseChain.
Right.
I would like to hear more in maybe a different context on what are the issues with claiming, but it might simply be that they actually that they didn't stake enough to get, or for long enough to get a reward.
I know, I was doing the max stake length. I was just trying to,
and you were not able to claim.
It was. I had so many problems. I mean, I've done it at times, and at other times, I haven't done it because it's been too. Maybe it's fine now. I don't know. I haven't tried lately, but like, Yeah, it was, and also because now we're claiming on so many different chains, and like there's just a ton of stuff to do.
That's one thing we should maybe be
Beautiful
clear
thing
on.
about this actually versus in contrast to Hedron is that Hedron you had to actually go and do a different transaction for each stake that you have in order to claim the Hedron. But in the case of Comm, it looks at all the stakes you have all at once and just says, here's how much Comm you're owed for all those stakes. So you could have 1,000 stakes or one stake. It's going to mint it all at once regardless. So
I was waiting for the stakes to come up and then just minting it all before I ended them. But I thought that was the best tactic, rather than try to get it all kind of.
Yeah, there's a start claim and then there's an end claim. So you start the stake and you're able to claim, and you end the stake and you're able to claim. When you're starting when you're claiming your start stakes, you get to claim that all at once. And then when you end your stakes, you're going to have to end the stakes individually.
I think Bluey almost said pre-com just then. Just saying.
So let's get back on track a little bit. So in terms of where I think we've gotten to is everyone understands they can get this coupon rate. You get a bunch of Comm, and what do you do with that at that point? And I think Hex Enthusiast is saying, well, you can probably someone's going to go dump that, or I mean, is this what we're about to look at now? Is okay, how do we protect that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was speaking about the threshold, and we can look at that. So what I have is a spreadsheet up here, and you can see a table, and I have staking lengths here. So not sure how well we can see that, but
that's better. Yeah.
Your initial, you're not able to claim any Comm until you're at least at 180 days. And I have a table here that goes year by year, starting with the half a year and then 1 year each afterwards, all the way up to the 15 years. Whenever I mention the coupon rate, I'm always going to be talking about this 15 year. The 15 year, that's the coupon rate I'm focused on. And so I'm just going to make that number bigger so that we're focused on it, because this is what I'm calling the coupon rate. That's 6.9% right now based on the current price of Comm and the price of Hex currently, and also based on the T-share rate. That generates that coupon rate, which is currently at 6.9% based on those numbers. Okay.
Yeah, and you can see how it's weighted so that it disproportionately favors the 15-year stakes.
That's the other thing we can show here is that you can look at this column here where I call it the additional year multiple on the claim. So the difference between, this is the 1 year staker versus the half a year staker, is a 4.4x. So a 1 year staker gets 4.4 times as much Comm as a half a year staker. And then a 2 year staker, zoom in a little more, maybe not. A 2 year staker gets 2.4 times as much Comm as the 1 year staker. And you can see how it trends as you go forward. What it ends up being is that a 15-year staker gets 51 times as much as the 1 year staker. And I didn't compare it on this sheet, but the 15-year staker gets 3 times as much as the 10-year staker. So there's also a huge difference between the 15-year and the 10-year. The 15-year gets 3 times as much as the 10-year. And so that's just to point out the coupon rate and why it's so heavily weighted towards the 15-year mark, and why it should influence that 15-year global average stake length. The global average stake length should rise and approach 15 years because of this, if this is successful. But what I have down here, this is the plan. This is the encompassing plan right here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide these columns just so that we don't get confused here. And I have this table here. This is what I'm calling the secret weapon plan. This is the plan here. And what it is it's a balanced equation saying that the amount of Comm that is getting claimed in rewards, that amount, the equivalent amount of value had to be burned in Hex. Okay. based on these allocations that I have in these two rows here. And so what you'll see is at the 5% coupon rate, it calls for, by the way, there's two allocation types that I have. I have the optimal allocation and then an adjusted allocation. We can get into that later. However, just for the sake of going over this, we'll look at the optimal. So the optimal allocation calls for at the 5% coupon rate, calls for 95% hex and 5% comm. And then you have this row here. This last row is basically a validation column. It's validating that the equation is balanced, saying that the amount of money that claimed the comm, that same amount of value had to burn the hex. And that's where you get this multiple here, this multiple column. It's saying when you're at 5%, 20 times the amount of hex had to be burned to claim that. If you're at 20%, 5 times the amount of hex had to be burned to claim that, and so on. All the way until you get to 99% coupon rate. You had to burn 1% more hex in order to claim that comm. Now, what you can end up with when you're looking at this, and I'm going to unhide these columns now, is you get what amount of backing is required in order to support this coupon rate in such a way where everybody who is staked is able to actually claim and exit with enough liquidity to get their reward. And so when you're at the 5% rate right now, it's saying that you would need $10.5 million of backing. And what that does is it takes care of the legacy stakers that already exist in the system. It gets them out.
So effectively what you're saying is they could claim their comm, go to one of the liquidity pools, swap it back for hex.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so this would be calling for the amount of liquidity that you would need in order to get them to be able to claim their full reward and exit with no slippage. It's just saying if that amount of backing is there, they would be able to exit with their reward, and you would be able to do that for everybody who exists in the system. Now,
so sorry, just I want to try and break it down. So to get that amount of value, it would be done in one of two ways I see. Either at the current price, people have to get that much hex and comm and put it into a liquidity pool, or let's just say whatever the current liquidity pool is, the price of comm needs to be pushed up to drive up that value in the pool. Is that fair to say?
Because you don't necessarily need to be joining a pool. You can also simply just say, okay, we're at a 10% coupon rate. It says that calls for 10% of the hex to go to comm. So you can take your hex, take 10% of it, purchase comm at a market buy. Don't even worry about joining the pool. You've done your part to support the system, and you are at a minimum risk level, because if the backing was there to get you to the 10% coupon rate at a sustainable rate, and the sustainable rate would say that you have $21 million of backing at a maximum, well, that would say that you can put in 10% of your hex into comm with virtually zero risk if we have this sort of a backing here. That's what this is saying.
Okay.
Yep. So tragedy of the commons. Obviously, not everyone's going to elect to do that. How?
Sure.
Yes. So the way that you beat tragedy of the commons here is you have to start from the beginning. I'm not sure how familiar you all would be with role-playing games like RPG video games where you have to level up with experience points. But this could be an analogy for that. You do not want to go to the next level without completing the first level first. And the reason is because what happens if you try to do that, you're going to get smacked down. Okay. So if you start seeing the price of comm, so remember, we're at a 6.9%. So let's just go ahead and call that the 5% rate. If somebody pushed the price up right now, all the way to say 50% rate, which by the way, it does not take much money right now to do that. The market buys in order to send it to 50%, it would take about $200,000 in net buys to send it to a 50% coupon rate right now. However, if you would do that, if you sent that price that high that quickly, it would be too easy for the stakers that exist in the system to claim their Comm that they would get for their stakes and then dump the price, because their Comm would be now worth $105 million in total. And so there would easily be somebody there to come and smack it right back down to the 5% and send it back and correct the price down to where the market cap would be 10.5 million total possible based on the current legacy stakers. And so because of that, you want to have the right amount of backing or people not selling. So a combination of backing or people not selling that equates to about $10.5 million worth, to then say, okay, we can move to the next level now. And the next level would be the 10% coupon rate with a total amount of backing requirement of $21 million. And so as this grows, you level up along the way.
And you can only mint 20. Sorry, man. You can only mint 25% of your potential Comm initially anyway, can't you? So otherwise you have to wait for the stake to end to get the other 75%.
That's a good point that needs to be mentioned, because when I speak about the coupon rate, I am talking about the start coupon.
Yeah.
So now you would think, because the start coupon for a 15-year staker is 25% of what the total reward will be by the time their stake ends. And then in your mind, you might be thinking, well, that means that there's a point in time where they're going to get the other 75%, and they're probably going to dump that. However, that's so deferred out into the future that it is a non-issue while you're working on building up this liquidity, because it's a very deferred amount of supply.
100%.
Just out of interest, have you pushed those numbers into some sort of modeling to see how it could look? Or
yeah, what I got when we were at a 5% rate is that based on the first year, so it averages out yearly right now at about $700,000 per year, but that's if you do it linearly. Because it's disproportionate, it's way less than $700,000. So you have to think of the end stakers who are ending their stakes that are based on this next year, this next rolling 365 days. How much are their end stakes worth? And remember, the 15-year stakers get 50 times as much, which means that if the coupon rate is 7%, the end stakers are getting 50 times less than that. They're getting 50 times less. And so that value ends up being very small compared to this number here, this total current market cap possible, 10.5 million. The amount of damage that the rolling, the people who are ending stakes for the next 365 days, that amount of value is very small relative to what
it would be negligible. Yeah.
And so I have not included those numbers in these calculations, because in actuality, these numbers that I have here, they're actually not very important, in the sense that we're not actually looking to actually hit this number as in backing. Because what we know about market, because remember, this is a potential market cap. But what do we know about market caps as far as liquidity versus market cap? We know that there is never the amount of liquidity that matches the market cap.
100%. Yep.
That ratio is usually around, what I've seen, is about 1 to 3%.
3%. Yeah, that's what I've seen as well. Yeah.
So if you can imagine, what we would actually probably need is about 1 to 3% of these numbers. Okay. So 1% of 10 million is $100,000. So these numbers, so Comm right now is very cheap based on that aspect alone. It's also very, very scarce right now, because when you're looking at this number, this $10.5 million based on the 5% coupon rate, that equates to the total potential market cap if everybody who currently existed in the system as a staker, if every one of them claimed their Comm and dumped it, it equates to $10.5 million. However, how many of those stakes are the OA? and how much of that value is the God whale, for example, because most people have not staked 15 years. Most people are staked way shorter than 15 years. And as a matter of fact, I have those numbers up here for the values that they would be per year. Their coupon value as it exists in the system right now are in this column.
Right.
And I have these percentages here. This is the 15th year. The 15-year stakers make up 47% of that value, but that's because it's weighted towards them. Most people don't have stakes out there in the 50-year mark. So what this is saying is that this 10.5 million number, 47% of it belongs to the 15-year stakes.
Yep.
Now, most of those people are probably dormant
at that point,
or
at that point where.
Here.
Sorry to interrupt, Johnny. I was just going to say, at that point, we're going to have jet ski dealerships, so we're not going to be concerned.
I love this referral from Lambos to jet skis. It's brilliant.
Yeah, everyone gets a jet ski.
Dozer, how are we going in terms of time? I'm just conscious of. I don't want to go
good.
too far.
I'm good for time, but yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, because I think we probably don't want to go for too long, or we can, maybe get Johnny to give us the, the Cliff Notes version, the too long didn't read version, to sort of try and summarize it, and then before we
So what I was thinking is if maybe we try and pull it back a little bit, because you've gone into a lot of this depth in a couple of other streams. So the Maddie Allen stream, which was a couple of days ago. One of your streams on your channel yourself, Johnny, you've got quite an in-depth one, and a 90-minute one there. And then there was the Cabana crypto one as well. So I think if you want to go through deep dive on spreadsheets and things like that, and the Maddie Allen stream was awesome. They asked all the tricky questions that I had in the back of my mind, all the technical type stuff. So if that's your deal, that's a good one to watch. So maybe we just
Maddie,
So let's bring it back to a higher level. If I've cut you off short, Johnny, and there's something you think is really important we need to cover, please do. But what I was sort of thinking is we come back a little bit and we talk about the reactivation of the referral program, because I think that's an important thing in terms of the marketing. And what else have we got? That would probably sort of bring us back up to a high level type thing. But like I say, if I've missed something that you think is important, please do cover it.
Definitely. So and can you mention again just so you wanted to talk about the referrals? So yes, that is a major point in the system. We have reactivated the referral program for Hex. So for anybody who was not here for Hex in the first year of the launch, the first 365 days of the launch of Hex, there existed a referral program where anybody who referred somebody to come and join the Adoption Amplifier lobby, which is how you minted your Hex in the beginning, that first year. Anybody who referred somebody to do that was able to capture as a referral reward a portion of that value that the user that they referred brought in. So that ended after the first year. And one of the things Richard always said was that he would love to see the referral program brought back by somebody from a third party in the future. And we have that now with Comm. So with Comm, when you refer somebody to make a stake and then claim their Comm reward, you as the referee are going to get back 1% of the value that they staked and claimed. It's as far as the value that they claimed in the Comm reward. So whatever they're able to claim in Comm, you get 1% of that reward. So
it doesn't come out of their pie. It's an additional 1%.
Correct. So you are not taking from the user supply. It is minting you a new portion of supply to go to you as a reward for being the referee.
So I think one of the things that got broken in the Hex referral program. Now the reason why it was built into the Hex code is because auto market makers, DEXs, didn't exist at the time this contract was getting created. But what happened is throughout that period of the year launch, the DEX is all fired up. And then what it meant was we had a bit of an issue where if you referred someone via Hex, they would probably get a worse deal than had they gone and brought it off the market on the DEX, because there was they were essentially giving up some of their coins to you, their tokens to you. It turns out they could get a slightly better deal by going direct to market, and that was just because at the time the code was getting written, we didn't know these things were going to exist. This does not dilute the referee in any way at all.
Yes, that's a good point.
It's a big difference.
So, okay, so just to clarify, so if someone was to get their referral fee, and I think, their referral link, and I think Coffee has actually got a really good video on this where he was saying you can go on these like domain name sites like Namecheap, and rather than having like a really long link, you can have it redirect to just like, whatever, coffee.whatever.com, and then that will go to your referral link. So when someone clicks on that, then you get, is it 1% or something of extra comm, but it doesn't take away from the person who's actually using the link.
Correct.
The comm contract, it mints an extra 1% for that person.
Yes. So yeah, it's beneficial to the referee and the person who's being referred, because the person who's being referred is not losing any value from that.
Yes.
They're capturing everything that they were entitled to, and then it mints the token mints an additional 1% of supply for the referee. So yes, so it's great in that way that it doesn't take anything away from the person being referred. So we have a new reactivated referral program with Hex, and the beautiful thing about this one is that it lasts forever now. So essentially, anybody can hire themselves now to become referees for the system, where you're referring people to come stake Hex, and you will get 1% of the value in return on the comm side. And what this does is it creates a huge incentive to onboard the biggest money that you can, because you're going to get 1% of whatever they put in. So if you could be anybody, you can be any John Doe, and you can if you just happen to know a rich millionaire guy who you can give him good selling points to say, hey, come and stake Hex, and you're going to get this value back in return on the comm side. Well, if he puts $1 million into Hex, you're going to get $10,000 back. That would be the 1%.
Yeah, awesome.
Can you just bring up Retrostatic's comment, because this is something?
Yeah, I was just going to say. Well, I can't bring up comments on this, but I have got it here. Retrostatic, he said, "Hi guys, good conversation. Nice to have a website so we know exactly which pool to start building up first, like how a charity page." Or actually, I can't see that bit, but and you can see the stages filling up. So
what I'm thinking is, as a bit of a takeaway for the ending of the show, might be a nice way we can end this is.
Sure.
What's a simple strategy, or how can we harness the power of the community and give them some simple steps of, okay, this is what we need to be doing. These are the actions we should be taking to implement this. One other small question I've got for you, Johnny, which sort of ties into this. At the moment, there's potentially some risk if you're the first one into the liquidity pool and the liquidity pool is shallow, then people can come and dump on you with what they're minting. Is there a way we can, and I don't know whether this would work, you had a smart contract or something where people could deposit funds into, and it wouldn't go into the liquidity pool until a certain threshold or something was met, and if it wasn't met, you could claim it back or something along those lines?
That is an excellent idea that I would love to see. I've thought about that point. Yeah, it's not something that exists right now, but I would absolutely love to see that, because it would add even extra fuel to the fire of breaking this tragedy of the commons. Now, there is a current solution already, and the solution to not take the additional risk as the first person supporting the system right now, the way to avoid it would be to market buy the 2% first for the 5% coupon rate. You market buy the 2%, but then you do not join the pool with the other 98% of your hex, because by joining the pool with the other 98% of your hex, you are now offering up your hex for claimability.
Yep.
So the best way to support it while minimizing your risk while it's gaining traction and getting started, since you're now being one of the first supporters, the best way to do that would be to market buy the 2% and then not back it with the other 98% hex. However, once you do start to see liquidity rolling in, and once it starts to hit those thresholds of what's required for in backing for the 5%, 10%, and so on, and if you're looking at the chart, you just see that there's just not enough supply to break the chart down. The chart is showing you that it won't break these certain price levels. Then at that point, you'll know it's safer to go ahead and join the pool with your full backing because you are now at very minimal risk levels. So yes, the best strategy initially while we're gaining traction with this as a community would be to simply market buy with 2% of your hex and then don't join the pool until you start to see liquidity rolling in.
Yeah. So I guess what we need is just some sort of signal where people can see, okay, well, and maybe it's something as simple as like a pledge or something. Oh, I've got X amount of hex and comm or something I'm willing to put in the pool. I don't know, some way of signaling that we're at a certain level. Is there any way just off the market we would know that?
Yeah, so we've got coupon rates. If we could just bring up my screen real quick here.
Sure, mate. Sure.
This isn't going deep here, but so these are the coupon rates laid out on the chart. So it starts with a 5%. You can see where we are on the chart right now. We're just about at the 5% rate right now.
Okay.
And this is kind of the pathway to the 100%. Now, these prices change with the rise of the T-share rate. So it's important to note, I have a little note here that says this is based on a T-share rate of 30,135. But because the T-share rate rises slowly, it is not going to change drastically at all. It's going to change very slowly. But yeah, we would need third-party materials such as websites, resources such as websites that actually lay out what the current coupon rate is. That doesn't exist right now. Also, that spreadsheet that I showed, that I have plans to make that spreadsheet public so that anybody can use it. And a great idea for the user would be to join the Communist Telegram chat. When you join that chat, you'll be able to get to the spreadsheet. It'll be pinned in the chat. It's not pinned in the chat currently because I haven't made it public yet. I plan on making a tutorial video first on the spreadsheet before I make it public. So that's in the works. And once a tutorial video is completed, you'll be able to go to the Communist Telegram chat room. You'll be able to find the spreadsheet in the pinned messages, and it will be also laid out somewhere in the chat room on the pinned messages what the current coupon rate is and where the pricing is. This picture that we're looking at right now is what will be there. So it'll help with finding where the coupon rate stands right now. But as far as, so that's kind of the primitive state that it's going to be in right now. And then hopefully in the future, we start to see very cool websites.
Well, maybe Kodiak can create or incorporate some of this stuff into the Communist dashboard and things like that.
Is Kodiak still active part of the project, or?
Yes, he is still active. We speak a lot in chat. He's also moderating the chat room in the Communist Telegram chat. I also have, I'm also a moderator in the Telegram chat. But from his standpoint, I wouldn't be expecting him to update the website to include these kinds of resources. That would be better suited for third parties to develop those kind of websites. So it's something that I definitely hope to see, but yeah,
there's plenty of devs out there that could do something like this. Yeah.
This might be like something to bring up for another time, but is there anything that could be done almost like the Poly Maximus thing that the Maximus guys did? But you know how Jexa was saying that there's, almost like a pledge where people might need to say, yeah, I'm willing to do this or whatever. There's no better way to do that than to actually, put your money where your mouth is. But a lot of people would be worried about, and I was trying to think of the analogy, but where, everyone dibs in and then someone's like, nah, screw that, I'm out. Like, psych, like, jump out. Is there something that could be developed over time? And it would obviously take a bit of nutting out, but where people could put into some sort of contract where it's almost staked, but it's like a LP that's staked for a long period of time, where we can help build up those stages, instead of just putting it into a normal LP like on Fux or something, where you can just pull it any day. You could almost lock it away. I know that you could do that with just staking Hex or whatever, but to actually have that LP value there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I love the idea personally, and I think it's something that I think we can see it in the future. It's important that I make it clear that I'm not a developer myself, so it's not in my wheelhouse.
No, the Maximus guys are the ones for that.
But yeah, I would love to see something like that for sure. Absolutely. It would actually be even a better strategy than the PHUX pools, in my opinion. However, I'd still want to see those PHUX pools in existence, even if that were to occur, because those PHUX pools, in my opinion, function as a virtual repo market.
Yeah. I think they're important. You need liquidity in a market. It's got to. You can't have a false market. Like it needs to be able to grow organically and get support from the market. Otherwise, you're really not testing this theory out anyway. If you're just locking it all away and then no one can actually have fluidity and transfer in and out of these coins, I think
I might be thinking of this wrong, but there's all that talk of things being trustless. I think this, in a way, involves getting the coupon rate up. Almost involves trust, because
I think it can be done.
I have that fear, and I could be wrong, but of people pulling out when you're trying to build something up, and it never actually get there, and people use it to their advantage. But it's just a thought.
That's a healthy market, though, isn't it? Like if it hasn't got, if it can't be, if you can't push it out in the wild and people can't support it, then it's obviously not the right.
Yes.
No, that's true.
Right
It's cool.
mix, is it? Yeah.
And I also think of this as like, you get the communists for free, right? Like, so, you can purchase it, you can support it, you can do liquidity, you can do things, but there's no obligation for anyone to do this.
It's all a free market, but
it's a So, and the best thing, you could do by supporting it would be just to not sell the comm that you get, initially at least, and stake it out.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good point, and the reason that's a good point is because it's important to note that this doesn't necessarily require backing to get to the next coupon rates, because so that number, the $10.5 million requirement, based on the 5% coupon rate. Well, if you can imagine people market buying $10.5 million worth and then not selling it, then you don't actually need any backing. And if somebody with $10.5 million decides to buy up all the Comm from the legacy existing stakers right now, then they can clear the way of the market and make a blue skies path all the way to 100% by simply not selling. And then the price could simply go to 100% immediately and stay there. And then at that point, it's the question of, well, who else wants to support the system now that any new money coming in at that point has to become a stake for very long periods of time.
One thing is that it would be good if there was some way that you could encourage new users, because that Metcalfe's law thing that I was talking about before, where you 10x the network participants and you 100x the price, it's like it would be great if there was some way that you could prove that someone was a new user and that they for this cashback thing. So it's not just a closed system, if you know what I mean, to encourage people who have bridged over in the last however many days, or I'm not quite sure how you do it, but there might be some
answer
ways.
for that, actually. So
okay.
That threshold that I was speaking about, that number $300 million at the current pricing, if some big entity, hedge fund, just a very rich person said, realize the power of this system, he could park $300 million in liquidity back in Comm at the current price right now. And what it would do is all the legacy stakers could get out, but they would only be getting out at the 5% coupon rate. And then once they've all gotten out, that was only $10.5 million. That $300 million guy still has about $290 million left. And then what happens with the rest of the 290 million? That comes from new stakes being made. And then the question becomes, okay, but at what point does it become new users instead of just people who already had staking? Well, you can calculate based on the amount of HEX coming out from stakes on a daily basis, how much HEX is coming out in the next year, for example. And you can come up with a number of, say, 2 billion HEX, for example, comes out in the next year. I'm seeing about 300. Let me see. I'm seeing about 200 million per day, maybe. Actually, it's not even. It's way less than that, I believe.
Sounds
Let's
high.
just use a number of 100 million HEX per day.
Just really quickly, I got to bail. Sorry, guys.
That's cool, man.
But
No worries at all.
It's nice to meet you. And thanks for having me on. But yeah, I'll be listening.
Of course.
Catches.
No
Cheers,
worries.
mate.
Thanks, Hex enthusiast. See you, mate.
See you, mate.
Yeah, because that was the thing, is just to get to somehow verify that we're getting new users in, because that would be my biggest thing, was that I want to encourage new network participants rather than just rewarding a closed system, if you know what I mean.
Right. So you have that $10.5 million that secures the legacy stakers that were already staked. That's the first 10.5 million. And then it becomes a question of, well, how much money needs to back the amount of HEX that comes out on a daily basis from the stakes? That money is not very big. I was looking at about 50 million HEX coming out of stakes daily. Okay. And at the price of 1.5 cents, that's $750,000. So any amount of money after the 10.5 million, and then you start adding $750,000 to that per day, you can project out how much money would be required in order to turn that into new stakers.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Jexa, do you have any last questions for Johnny?
No, we probably went a little bit deeper than what I was trying to keep it really light and fluffy, but it is.
That's cool. Yeah.
There's a lot to it, and it's hard not to get into the details because you just want to understand the mechanics behind it. You understand the mechanics behind it. So I appreciate that. It's been probably a little bit of a different stream for you in the way you explain it, because you're obviously very data driven, which is what makes this work. Thanks for letting us walk it back and do a dummies version. I actually don't have. I'm just looking through what we wanted to cover, and I don't have any other things that I really wanted to touch on. I think that was pretty good. And like I said, there's plenty of more detailed streams to feed into after this.
If I could just give one very important data point, that is
please,
the real incentive for the community to support this, because it's very important to support this for a very particular reason. We're seeing declining average stake lengths. Now, you're not going to see that in the numbers when you go down Hex Daily Stats, for example. You're going to see we've been hovering around 7 years. However, that's one way of looking at it. There's a deeper way you can look at that, which actually reveals the actual truth of what's going on. So the number of opening stakes is one thing you can look at. And then you can also look at the median stake length. Not the average, the median stake length. And the reason that the median is more important than the average is because the average is coming from large holders who are staking and they weren't going to sell anyway. And so the more indicative number as to what's actually going to affect the market is the median. Okay. And so just to point out some numbers here, the number of stakes opening year over year. In the year 2020, we saw 232,000 stakes opened in that year. 2021, 238,000, so 6,000 more than 2020. But then you see a huge drop off in 2022. 2022, we saw 191,000 stakes opened, which is actually 50,000 less stakes than 2021. Okay. And now we're 11 months into 2023. And we have only opened 67,000 new stakes this year. So I don't know what the projection would be for the next 2 months, but we are at 67,000 versus last year 191,000.
Yeah, I think
That could be
I think you've got
correlated with the price.
I think there's that, and you've also got to put that in context as well. Some people might be rolling, like bundling stakes. So as they come out, they bundle them together and roll them in. So you haven't got a heap of stakes, you're consolidating them. So that's one potential thing. But I think Doz has hit the nail on the head. When you see price come back up to where it should be, people will not want to miss out on the yield. The yields that people were pulling out towards the end of the last market were insane. Like if you were,
it's the same with yield farming. It's the same with yield farming. When that APR drops in dollar terms, and you sort of just going, oh, well, there's no point. But when you actually extracting serious dollars out, it's like encourages you to do more. Yeah.
So, but we've definitely seen a deflation in the number of T shares. Whether that's just a factor of the share rate. I think it's a bit of a combination factor of the share rate and probably not as many people pushing out stakes for as long. So that's definitely something, and probably something we didn't think would happen until later, maybe year 5 or 6, or I think it was even out further before we thought we'd see a massive deflation in T shares. But yeah, I think price will fix a lot of that.
For sure. There was just one thing that I wanted to clarify, which was not to do with, or it sort of was. It was when we were talking about that referral link, and I was saying that I think Coffee had a video, and shout out to Coffee. He's got some great videos, so people should check out his channel. But he was talking about, I mentioned about the referral link and using the domain name thing. I actually think, as I was thinking about it, he might have been talking about with the staking on go.hex, it was this IPFS hash that he was talking about. So I just didn't want to misrepresent what he was talking about. Or he might have mentioned it with the communist referral link, but in my mind, I was also thinking of that. So I sort of mentally attached the two things together. But he was talking about how with staking now, you can either just run the server yourself from your own machine, or you could create your own page and then have a domain and then just have it referred to this hash. Yeah. So check out Coffee's videos on that. And he's also got stuff about running your own Uniswap front end because they've got this on GitLab now. If you go to the ETH Hex Uniswap server, so you can run both the Hex staking server on your local machine, but also the Uniswap front end, you can run that server from your local machine as well. So that's on the Ethereum side. So I just wanted to clarify that point. But thank you very much for coming on, Johnny. I really appreciate it, especially for your time zone and everything, and for being patient with us as we have a few beers on a Friday Arvo.
I'll catch up with you on that. On the Bears.
Yeah, for sure, man. But thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And I think you've really sort of opened up the community's eyes a little bit to some of the potential for some of these things that can complement Hex. And I do like to think of it in terms of Hedron as well. These are like the additional parts to staking that that people don't immediately come to mind when they just look at Hex and the Liquid, and they look at it in terms of the price. They're not taking into account the staking and some of these other yields that you can accrue over time that complement Hex. So thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, and there's a lot more to come. I'm going to be drilling this down, making some videos. I haven't gotten to making the tutorial videos quite yet.
Awesome.
I've kind of more done the streaming first, but tutorial videos will be coming. There's a lot more to come because this has to be drilled down until the community gets it, because at the end of the day, this is one of the most powerful things that not only have we seen in Hex, but in my opinion, this is the most powerful thing that we've seen in crypto to date. So we're going to drill down on this point. So a lot more to come, and I really appreciate you guys having me on to share.
Thanks, Matt.
Of course. Thanks very much, man. And thanks, Jexa, and all the other guys. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next week.
For sure.
Cool. Have a good weekend, everybody.